Sure. Cathy Madden, and I've been teaching the Alexander Technique for quite a while, actually. I didn't think about how many years, but I was very fortunate that my first teacher was Marjorie Barstow, and I was told she was one of the best in the world. And when I graduated from my master's program, I thought, oh, I want to learn to teach this, and I moved to Nebraska and started studying with her. And truly, all I did is I wrote from St. Louis, where I was living at the time. I sent her a letter. I said I'd like to come and learn to teach the Alexander Technique, and she sent me a letter back and said, "Well, come along and we'll see what happens."
A letter in the mail.
In the mail, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm so sorry I didn't keep it, or if I did keep it, it's buried somewhere. But she did send me a letter, and it didn't say you will be a teacher. It just said come along and we'll see what happens. So I went along, and really the way you learned to teach, I guess the way I learned to teach there is I started studying with her. And at a certain point, when I felt ready to investigate teaching, it became clear that what you do is you raise your hand in class and say you want to teach. And then your lesson in the Alexander technique is about the teaching process. And that has a whole trajectory, but it was always so interesting when you did that in class. Marj would sit down,
Mm,
and I now understand the message. It's like if you say you want to be a teacher, that means you're in charge of your own coordination. And it took me a while to really live into that because I wouldn't get very far in these teaching lessons because something would happen in my process. I'd go out of coordination. I wouldn't be able to restore it. Uh, and after some period of time, I don't really know how long, but I'm going to guess at least a year, I was finally able to get close enough to my student to be able to use my hands as part of the teaching process. Although she had already taught me that I was already teaching before I got there.
yeah.
So I do my best to teach in a very similar way to how Marj taught me. And that really was a decision that came shortly after she died, actually. I was in Europe teaching, and because she had just died, everyone kept asking me questions about her. And the particular one I heard at almost every place I was teaching was Marj teachers are different. What
Mm,
makes what makes them different? And I think this process that Marj took me through is a big reason that we are different because of that owning of the process over time. But also, we never had to do anything. There was no she didn't care if we became a teacher. But if we wanted to be a teacher, she would be of service to that goal. So everything I ever did in learning to teach was my choice.
hmm.
And to a certain extent, in training schools, that's sort of true, except once you sign up, there's sort of an expectation that you show up.
Right. And there's a specific time frame.
Right.
This is going to happen in a certain number of
Hmm.
years or
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
modules or whatever.
Right. And instead, what happens is you create your own. And each time, I mean, literally each time I wanted to teach, I had to say I want to teach. There wasn't a moment where you said, okay, everybody practice teaching. That didn't happen, at least not in the classes I was in. It was, I want to teach. And then gradually, yeah.
Well, how often were you in classes with a majority of people who wanted to be teachers?
we didn't classify ourselves that way.
Mm,
I'll start with that. And I would say most of the time, there were many people in the room who wanted to learn to teach. But there what the Marge did always say, teaching is just another activity. She also talked about every activity you do contributes to learning to be a teacher. So the distinction is both strong and not strong.
mm-hmm,
So the distinction is, I guess I really would say that the distinction was, if you say you're going to teach, you will be you will be using the Alexander technique. You will be figuring out what your plans are. Your job is to recognize if you're interfering, and if you are, come up with a constructive response to that. And I'll let you know when you come short of that goal. And when you come short
mm-hmm,
of that goal, it will be your job to figure out how to respond.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So is that coming short of the goal? Is that assessment
Mm-hmm.
for your job as a teacher trainer?
Mm-hmm.
Is that assessment different than when you're teaching a person who's not a teacher trainer? Or
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean?
Kind of. If I'm, and it's going to depend on what the student's goal in the lesson is,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not we'll get to a point in the lesson where I'll go, okay, well we've got this far, you figure it out from here. That's going to be a little less likely in a lesson that somebody's doing about learning to do a plie,
Mm-hmm.
unless they say to me, I want to use this time to make my own plans. So if they tell me that they just want me to say when I see the interference, then that's what I'll do. But usually when somebody is coming to solve something about an activity or to build a skill, I'm going to give a little more information
Mm-hmm.
than I do when I'm teaching someone to be a teacher, because the teacher's job is to be able to make their own plans. So I need so I need to shut my mouth.
Mm-hmm. So that when you're calling someone out, when you're telling somebody they're falling short of their own goal, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably when you see interference
Yeah.
or experience interference in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in my training with you,
Mm-hmm.
I there were a fair I you offered and I took advantage of a fair number of apprenticeship opportunities. So
Mm-hmm.
not just teaching in
Mm-hmm.
the studio setting, which is amazing and valuable, and
Mm-hmm.
we have that ability in a group of people who often know each other pretty well over time to go
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to take shortcuts, whereas working
Mm-hmm.
with a group of um, college undergrads, there are no shortcuts. So that was
Mm-hmm.
an incredibly valuable experience to
Mm-hmm.
have to roll,
Mm-hmm.
start at the beginning of a teaching process.
Right.
How do you, and of course, the pandemic probably doesn't afford anybody those opportunities. How do
Mm-hmm.
you anticipate kind of, um, if you have people who are sort of advanced students, but have what I think of as a backlog of undone experiences in terms of apprenticeship, how
Mm-hmm.
do you imagine that unfolding for people?
What I imagine is that people will, as we're able to, start teaching more people in person. I'm not sure when that moment is for me. I'm imagining that I'll start doing some distanced things as the weather is warming.
Hmm.
I'm personally going to choose to be fairly conservative about that. And unfortunately, King County is not doing very well right now.
Hmm.
But um, so there, I would say there is one person in that position that you're describing. Uh, and when we are able to do more in person, I imagine that things will move relatively swiftly. But it is something that I can't figure out a way to accomplish only in the Zoom environment.
Yeah.
Now, I could if there were more people that this person could teach in person, because I have supervised teaching and taught teaching if they can teach somebody right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you can see them, you can teach them
If I can
and see them
yes,
through any means. Yeah.
right, right. If I can see them with a real person and with a real same person in the physical environment, because they're already teaching in Zoom, but they're missing the component of using their hands as part of the teaching process, which is one of the skills.
Hmm. Overarching. What is your overarching philosophy of teacher training? Let me just be as simplistic as that. Mhm.
I'm looking over here because I have a whole book that says it. But
A whole book. Yes.
I have
Hold up your book, Cathy.
I have a book.
Yes.
This is my overarching strategy. Um, thought of a few things that I didn't put into it, of course, but uh,
Volume 2.
volume two, the we make ourselves a teacher. So the response, as I guess that's the responsibility is mine to use the process, continue to use the process, and respond in the current moment to whoever I'm with. In a way, it's rediscovering the process every time I teach.
Beautiful. We make ourselves a teacher. That's really
Mm-hmm.
uh, true in my experience.
Yes.
Every time,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
um, it's thrilling and wonderful, and it's always something new. It's such a creative
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
process, activity, calling. I don't know what
Right.
what's
Right. I
the word?
remember
Vocation.
vocation. I remember somebody in a training school asking me something about being worried about knowing enough, and I just said, you're going to have to get used to the fact that when you're teaching this process, you're the one who's going to know the least. The student always knows more about what's going on than you do.
Yeah, yeah, and part of our job as teachers is to help them understand how much they know,
Yeah.
so that they can use that information
Mm-hmm.
to do what they want, get what they want,
Mm-hmm.
feel differently, do something better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there anything in your training with Marj that you, I mean, you talked about what you kept in your teacher training. Is there anything
Mm-hmm.
that you've gone, I think I want to do this differently in my as I train teachers?
The one thing I chose to do differently in my studio is to have everyone do a project in paper formally. In many ways, I did that with Marj. I did have many projects. I did have some papers. one of the few things she did ask us to do was write an article for her 90th birthday book. So we did
Mm,
all write something, or not many of us wrote
that's a
something.
sweet request.
It was. It was. So there was, I know that the moment I realized, really knew that Marj identified me as a teacher of the work was when a teacher was visiting from out of town, and I came in to class, and that out of town teacher was there, and the first thing Marj said to me was, Cathy, how did your Alexander class go today at the university?
Oh, so she was like promoting you in front
She
of
was
another teacher.
right. And
Amazing.
I went, okay, I've clearly graduated. So, so
There's your graduation ceremony.
right. So there, that part was always a titch amorphous, and the way I managed it was just, Marj, I want to do that. Do you think that's okay? Am I ready? So I did ask all along the way as I started to do more things. So with the project and the paper, I did it does create more of a finish,
Hmm.
and it is a way to bring theory and practice together. And it isn't necessarily a paper. Some people have done journals, some have done videos, so it's has different manifestations. But there's some there's a different kind of ownership, and then I do create a studio certificate, which I have whoever is becoming a teacher sign before me.
Mm,
So again, I am recognizing that they have made themselves a teacher.
mm.
So there is
Huh.
a clearer
Neat.
finish.
Hmm.
There's a clear, there's a moment where you can say, okay, she says I'm a teacher. And there would have been, as you know, steps along the way on the way there. So that's the only thing that I've done. I think that I've done really differently. Um, and then I still think I say too much. I say I give people much more help than Marj gave me, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, as a recipient of that help, I really appreciate everything you've ever told me.
Okay.
So I kind of want to pivot, as they say, a little bit and talk about Alexander Technique teachers who have trained in other settings.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess first, why they might want to learn um, Integrative Alexander Technique, or the principles or the practice of Integrative Alexander Technique, and then how they would do that.
Okay. Obviously, I'm highly biased towards integrative Alexander Technique practice. I think it's more accessible to people. People get to learn the work connected to something they care about rather than potentially to, I'm going to call, artificial forms. So if somebody's really wants, an example, perhaps, someone told me once that their Alexander Technique teacher wouldn't let them do an activity till they got better at some sort of procedure. Whereas I want to do the activity from the first time somebody walks in the room. Somebody says, I'm coming for, they play the violin. I want to study this. What should, what should I get ready for the first lesson? It's bring your violin,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's what they care about. And the thing that leads learning, the thing that facilitates change is desire. So I want to just go from where somebody cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough that the way Marj taught me to teach, because she taught that way, is that I can analyze a bunch of different activities. I can look at how they go. And it teaches a more flexible response in the whole system rather than sort of a framework that you have to see. I learned this framework. Does it fit in X activity? Well, if it's always been connected to that activity, it's much simpler to bring it into daily practice. And the people who've trained other ways who talk to me about this practice essentially say things like, they want me to teach a workshop about this, but I've never thought of integrating the Alexander technique into something. So for some of them, it's like, this is what people are asking me to do, but I don't know how. So getting this extra set of tools that lets you analyze activity and apply this work in all kinds of ways actually gets some teachers more money. Okay,
Ah,
so it could be
so that piece of analyzing activity,
right.
do you consider that a differentiator to
For
integrative
many
Alexander
people,
technique practice? Okay.
right.
Yeah.
It's a requirement for it, and depending on somebody's training, some people have had almost none of it, some people have had much of it. So there's a wide spectrum in how people in the training school model approach it. But I have been in training schools where they've never really thought about analyzing activity. And that's what I end
So
up
for
teaching.
me,
Yeah,
as a choreographer, that is like completely, I just
I
don't like, it's
know.
very hard to for me to imagine living even without knowing the Alexander technique, just being in the world and not analyzing activity.
Right.
So I'm a little bit, not even biased. It's just what it's
Hmm.
confusing to me how that could occur. Um, and I guess no shame is the term. No shame if that is what is true. But that makes me wonder how. So they come in with that desire. They know they have
Hmm.
the interest in. Um, uh, I keep using the word assessing, but that's not the word you just used.
Hmm.
Looking at activity. What was the word you just used?
And
Um,
analyzing.
analyzing. Yeah. Analyzing activity. So assessing without judgment.
Yes.
Analyzing activity in ways that might be useful to the person doing the activity.
Hmm.
Um, how do people? I guess what are some of the, or if you're able to reveal this about a student or kind of in in total, like what are the sticking points in learning to do that, and or what are the um, aha moments?
Mm, okay. What teaching an activity asks you to do is to really see these ideas Alexander offered us as something that's in a dynamic system.
Mm-hmm.
So the quality of the relationship between head and spine and movement can be in all
Yes.
kinds of relation of movement. It
Mm-hmm.
isn't in a sort of frame of there's only a certain set of shapes that are
Range. Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it asks you to see quality of whole movement rather than a specific placement. It asks you to consider efficiency rather than something being more or less work. Some things are a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So occasionally somebody's got an idea that the Alexander technique is always easy. Um, and I've run into a few people who've hurt themselves doing something strenuous while trying to be easy. And you go, no, actually, you needed some muscle for that.
Mm-hmm.
And not using enough muscular power can cause as much discoordination as using too little. I mean, using too little can cause as much problem is using too much. So being able to see what's actually necessary, I suppose, and you just need a deep curiosity. Somebody brings you something. I think it's a great gift. Someone brings you an activity that you can't even imagine, and you're standing there going, well, actually, you did this quite a bit. It's like, you want that movement to look like what, Crispin? Okay, Crispin, let's see if we can find anything that can do that.
Yeah.
you know, but it's this sort of this deep curiosity about how all of our systems work together to create different kinds of shapes for different kinds of goals, and to understand that somebody else's goals might be different than yours, and that's fine.
Hmm.
You may have to figure out what it is. You certainly had
Yes.
to do that with many activities. Going, really? You want to do what? Okay, let's see. I can see that you're getting very out of sort of your whole system's tightening to do that. Is there a way to do that that has the whole system organized to serve you instead?
Hmm.
Hmm, You know,
Yeah. So the choice of activity is not ours unless
no,
we need to nudge someone with a suggestion.
right,
If they've
right,
come with nothing and they don't know why you would need one.
right. And I remember somebody, you asked for an aha moment, and someone came to a workshop and really was just going, I've never thought of doing this way. I just want to see, and said, how about if I work on my cricket pitch? I'm going, a cricket pitch. Okay, sure. And so I got to see what he was doing and analyze it, offer him the Alexander information to serve the cricket pitch, and it got better
Oh,
without me
great.
actually. Yeah, and he was like, okay. so so I think those are the ahas, is like, oh yeah, if I really do it where I care, my whole system responds better.
Right. Yeah. We do coordinate to desire.
We coordinate to desire. So we
Hmm.
start there.
Yeah. Yeah. So on a more tactical level,
Mhm.
if people are interested in training with you,
Mhm.
to as either to start a teacher training program or to learn more if they're already
Mhm.
certified teachers, how might they find you?
Well, easiest way to find me is either through my website or uh, cathmadden@gmail.com. Those would be,
Great.
and I
And
guess I
any group class is available. Any group class or private training is an
mhm,
opportunity to start talking about teacher training.
absolutely, because
Yeah.
I really prefer people learning to teach be in classes with people who are not learning to teach. It's a provides a much richer way to learn to teach, I find. And I do teach some groups that are mostly clinic or teachers clinics, but people
That can
then
get pretty quiet.
it
From
can,
my experience.
well, it can, because when I've taught groups of that are only teachers, they what they want to watch, they want to they want to learn about teaching, but the only way to learn about teaching is for somebody to want to learn, have a lesson. And so,
Who doesn't already know how to do this, right?
right, or who is a teacher and is willing to really take on the role of being a learner in that moment. So I've taught some, and that's similar to Marj. We really, we did have, during some of the workshops, we would have teachers' classes, but that was primarily because we were helping teach in the workshop, so we couldn't get lessons from her. So they weren't
Mm,
specifically really a teacher's clinics. It's just, hey, Marge, we'd like a lesson too.
yeah.
But 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 since we're helping you teach, there isn't any time for that. So she would teach us some classes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I have, as somebody who's tried to be a good student to teachers in training while I was training as well as now, I just try to look for the thing that I definitely don't know how to do. So
Hmm.
there's a little
Hmm.
from my corner of the world.
Yep.
Well, cool. Is there anything else you want people to know about working with you, or what a wonderful life this is?
It is. I am grateful daily that I have this process. Even walking in my garden, certainly now getting into the ridiculous shapes I get into trying to take care of my grandbaby who's 10 months old, and I'll be facing one way and he wants to go the other way. And I'm like, oh goodness, how do I organize to get there fast? Because, he needs
Baby.
attention. Yeah, baby.
Yes.
So I'm just grateful to know it all the time. And I suppose the thing, teacher training is like the other things. It's your desire that leads it. And you're the one who's going to know the best pathway for you to make yourself a teacher. And I'll do everything I can to put the tools around you. So anyone thinking about that to know, I mean, you remain in the lead.
Right. So they don't have to give away any of their expertise
No,
to add a new skill.
nope,
Yeah.
nope.
Well, I am forever grateful to you. There's no way I would ever know about this work without you. And having run into you in the early 90s, fairly unexpectedly, I have to say, I'm just like, I feel so lucky.
Me as well.
Okay. Shall we stop recording now?
I think so.
Okay.